Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Ketubot. We are up to Perikei Mishnah Alayev. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilul Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbayev, Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, and Chana bad Miriam, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen. And Lehavdir ben Chaim lechaim, V'lerefuah shelema Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betoch Shah Cholei Israel. A central subject of this Masechet is the Ketubah payment that a wife collects from her husband or his estate if he divorces her or dies before her. If she was a virgin when she married him, she is entitled to 200 zuz. If she was not a virgin, for example, a widow or divorcee from a previous marriage, she receives only 100 zuz. This Mishnah discusses the law where a husband committed himself to pay more than the standard amount. The Mishnah begins, even though the sages said that a virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow collects a maneh 100 zuz, im ratzah losif afilu mea maneh yosif. If a groom wants to add even 100 maneh, meaning 10,000 zuz, he may do so. We are not concerned that this might embarrass a husband who cannot afford to pay that more than the standard amount. And the extra amount, which is called the Tosefet Ketubah, addition to the Ketubah, is subject to the same laws as the standard amount. Nit'armela or nitgarsha, then if she becomes widowed or divorced, ben min ha'erusin, ben min ha'nisuin, whether during erusin or nisuin, gova et hakol, she collects everything, including the extra amount. The next Tana disagrees regarding a marriage that ended during erusin. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Mina nisuin gova et hakol, if she was widowed or divorced after nisuin, she indeed collects everything. Mina erusin bitula gova 200 v'almana maneh. But if she was widowed or divorced during erusin, a virgin collects only the basic 200 zuz, and a widow collects only the basic maneh. Shelo chatav lah el almanat lechansah. She is not entitled to the additional amount because it is assumed that he pledged it to her only on the condition that he brings her into his domain with nisuin. Therefore, since this marriage never reached nisuin, he makes only the minimum payment. Now, the dispute concerns only the extra amount. All agree that she receives the basic 100 or 200 zuz, even if the marriage ended during erusin. And the Gemara on page 89b, Masechet Ketubot, cites an opinion that if a marriage ends during erusin, the arusa does not receive anything. However, that is true only where the groom did not write that he will pay an arusa, whereas our Mishnah refers to a case in which he did. The Mishnah discusses whether the amount of the ketubah may be decreased. Rabbi Yehuda says, Im ratzah, if the groom wishes and his bride agrees, kotev livtula shtar shel 200, he may write for a virgin a ketubah contract of 200 zuz. V'hi chotevet itkabalti mimcha maneh, and she writes, I received a maneh 100 zuz from you, even though she had not received anything. Her words mean that she forgoes this portion of the payment and considers it as though it has been given to her. Ulalmana maneh, for a widow he may write a contract of a maneh. V'chotevet itkabalti mimcha 50 zuz, and she writes, I received 50 zuz from you. Then when the ketubah becomes payable, he only has to give 100 zuz in the case of the virgin and 50 zuz in the case of the widow. Even if a bride agrees to receive less than the standard amount, her husband must first write a proper ketubah contract for the full amount, since that is what the sages decreed. She may then write a receipt stating that he paid part of it even if he did not, and thereby free him from having to pay that amount. However, she may not write that she received all of it and release him completely of his obligation. That is not allowed. The next Tana disagrees. Rabbi Meir says, Kol hapochel libtula mi-200 u'lalmana mi-maneh. If anyone reduces the amount for a virgin to less than 200 zuz, or the amount for a widow to less than a maneh, even in the matter that we described, harezu be'ilat znut, this cohabitation between them is immoral cohabitation. Since the ketubah has been reduced to less than the minimum, it is as though they are not married, and therefore they are forbidden to live together. According to Rabbi Meir, the minimum ketubah payment is a biblical obligation. Therefore, any agreement to reduce the amount is null and void, because it is impossible to override a law of the Torah. Rabbi Meir holds of the principle, matneh ma shekatuv b'Torah tinao batel. If one makes a condition that runs against what is written in the Torah, his condition is nothing. The husband is therefore obligated to pay the full amount, regardless of their agreement to the contrary. Nevertheless, since the wife does not think that she will receive the full amount, their marriage is considered improper, and any cohabitation between them is like the cohabitation of an unmarried couple. And the Rav thus tells, V'lechak Rabbi Meir b'gzerotav, the halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Meir in his decrees. And that is the Rabotai of Mishnah Aleph. Now in the times of the Mishnah, the ceremonies of Erusin and Nisuin were held a long time apart, unlike nowadays when they are performed one immediately after the other. However, once the groom asks the bride to begin preparing for the Nisuin, the bride is given a limited time in which to prepare. That is the Mishnah Bet. The Mishnah begins, Notnin libtula 12 chodesh misheteva'ah haba lefarnes et atzma. A virgin bride is given 12 months from when the husband asks her to provide for herself with clothes and jewelry for their wedding. And just as the woman is given 12 months, so is the man given 12 months to provide for himself. If the bride asks the groom to start preparing for the Nisuin, the groom too can demand up to 12 months. The groom needs time to prepare the wedding feast and the chuppah as well as their house and furniture. However, a bride who is a widow from a previous marriage is given only 30 days for her preparations because she already has clothes and jewelry. The Mishnah refers to one who became a widow after Nisuin. If she was widowed during Erusin, she is given the usual 12 months because she does not necessarily have clothes and jewelry from her previous marriage. The Mishnah states what happens if the husband wants to delay the wedding past the appointed time. If the time of the wedding arrived and they did not get married because the groom insisted on more time, she eats his food, meaning he must start supporting her as though they had already performed Nisuin. After Nisuin, a husband must pay for his wife's support, as we learned in chapter 4, Mishnah 4. And the Mishnah's ruling applies only where the groom wanted to postpone the wedding. If it was the bride who sought a delay, he is not obligated to support her until the actual Nisuin. And if she is a daughter of an An Kohen and he is a Kohen, she may begin to eat terumah. Under biblical law, when the daughter of a non-Kohen marries a Kohen, she is allowed to eat terumah as soon as they are betrothed, Erusin. The sages decreed, though, that terumah remains forbidden to her until Nisuin. They were concerned that if she eats terumah during Erusin, when she still lives in her father's house, she might mistakenly give some to her siblings or other members of her family who are forbidden to eat terumah. Once the time for the wedding arrives, however, this current concern no longer applies, because the groom provides her with her own place outside her father's house in which to eat the food he must now start to give her, so that she does not cause him a loss by sharing his food with family members. Now, Tanaim disagree about how much terumah he may give her. The husband would prefer to give her terumah because it is cheaper than chulin. Since terumah is forbidden to non-kohanim, there is less demand for it than other food, but there is a dispute. Rabbi Talfon says, Notnin la hakol terumah. All of her food may be terumah, even though she will have to sell some in order to buy ordinary food to eat during her days of tumah. Rabbi Akiva Omer, but Rabbi Akiva says, mechetza chulin umechetza terumah. Half of the food he gives her must be ordinary for her days of tumah, and the other half may be terumah for her days of tahara. The Torah forbids eating terumah when one is tameh. Therefore, if a woman has only terumah, she will have to sell some of it and buy chulin, ordinary food, which she can eat when she is nidah. Rabbi Akiva holds that at least half of the food the groom gives her must be chulin, so that she does not have to sell any terumah. But Rabbi Talfon holds that all of the food can be terumah. Rabbi Talfon's ruling applies only to a Kohen's daughter who is used to protecting terumah from tumah and knows that it must be sold in exchange for chulin for her to eat when she is tameh. In the case of a non-Kohen's daughter who is not familiar with these matters, Rabbi Talfon agrees that at least half of her food must be chulin, and therefore this part of the Mishnah is different from the previous part, which refers specifically to the daughter of a non-Kohen. The commentators get into that, but again, that is the dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Talfon. That is done about today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.